The year is 1989. The venue is Suzuka. The driver is Ayrton Senna. And Ayrton Senna dives into the chicane. He collides with his McLaren teammate Alain Prost, and Formula One history changes forever. Fast forward to 2025. Monza. Lando Norris overtakes Oscar Piastri after a controversial pit stop mix-up, igniting whispers of a new rivalry at McLaren. These are two different eras, two different battles, but is Oscar Piastri versus Lando Norris the modern day echo of Alain Prost versus Ayrton Senna? In Formula One, the fiercest rivalries are not always between teams, sometimes they erupt within the same garage. In 1989, McLaren was torn apart by Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna. And now, 36 years later, in 2025, the same team finds itself in the middle of another championship duel, this time with the protagonists being Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Back then, Alain Prost was the professor. He was the veteran. He had won multiple Formula One Drivers' World Championships. He was consistent. He was calculating. He was always playing the long game. Ayrton Senna was the opposite. He was aggressive, relentless, and the ultimate qualifier. In 1989, Ayrton Senna took a staggering 13 pole positions, but Alain Prost's consistency kept him ahead on points. It all came down to Suzuka in Japan. Senna tried to overtake Prost at the final chicane. They collided, and although Senna crossed the line first, he was controversially disqualified. Alain Prost took the championship in 1989. This rivalry, as every Formula One fan would tell you, was raw. It was personal, and it was one of the most explosive rivalries in the history of Formula One. Fast forward to 2025, and finally, McLaren is once again in a title fight. And believe it or not, this is the first time since 1989 that two McLaren drivers are fighting each other for the Formula One Drivers' World Championship. But this time, both drivers are chasing their very first World Championship. Oscar Piastri, calm, composed, leads the standings with a narrow cushion, 31 points. Lando Norris is more emotional, passionate, and is loved by fans, at least Lando Norris fans. He's not that far behind. At Monza in Italy, a pit stop error forced Oscar Piastri to give way. It was not his fault. Lando Norris had a slow pit stop, but the team did not want to be seen to be favouring Oscar Piastri perhaps. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes at McLaren. But the team orders were clear. Oscar Piastri had to give way for Lando Norris, and Lando Norris grabbed the points. But unlike Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri maintain respect. But make no mistake, the fight is just as fierce, and every race could decide who becomes Formula One Drivers' World Champion. So how do these rivalries compare? Prost versus Senna was about ego, legacy, and two titans colliding in their prime. Piastri versus Norris is about the next generation, two extremely young talents fighting not just for wins but for their very first crown. In 1989, team orders barely existed. In 2025, strategy calls and pit stop decisions can shape the outcome, and team orders have become the new normal. While Senna versus Prost was fueled by animosity, Oscar Piastri versus Lando Norris is fueled by mutual respect, at least for now. History doesn't repeat itself, but in Formula One, it often rhymes. 1989 gave us one of the most iconic rivalries the sport of Formula One has ever seen. 2025 is giving us another, different in tone, but just as thrilling. The question is, will McLaren survive another battle between its own drivers, or will Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris part ways just like Senna and Prost did at the end of the 1989 season?